All right, good morning, children. My wife told me yesterday that I had to be more upbeat in my greeting of you because I was coming across as too dour and potentially bumming you out. So sorry about that. Didn't mean to harsh your mellow, children. Didn't realize you were so sensitive. All right, anyway. Today we're talking about chapter 3 of the Catcher in the Rye, and we are focusing on imagery and sensory detail. And the reason for that is there are a few key moments in this chapter that revolve around sensory experiences. So first things first, I would like to see more precision in your analysis in your blogs. Some of you guys, I'm getting like one sentence of analysis for your passage, and that really doesn't do the job at all. I need to be hearing about intended effect. I need to be hearing about like what ideas are communicated through those techniques. So you need to make sure that you're also using the technical language like connotation, tone, imagery, direct characterization, etc. Use the language that we discuss, okay? This is going to be really, really important. The reason that we are doing this is because this is going to be the technically focused way that you analyze literature for the next 2 years of your life. So get good at it now so you don't have to eat trash next year. Please, please, please. Okay, imagery and sensory detail. Imagery and sensory detail is everywhere. Okay, if you're looking for it, if you're reading something, it is going to be all over the place. It is description in writing which appeals to our senses. So we generally use the word imagery to describe things that appeal to our sense of sight, but sensory detail really covers all the senses, including sight. So you can use these basically interchangeably if you want. Now, imagery adds depth to writing and really is truly one of a writer's most powerful tools in communicating ideas and themes. Okay, stories exist in an imagistic world, and this is the tool that creates images. So it's going to be one of the most important components, one of the most important techniques in writing. Some basic examples, okay? So the sense of taste. The familiar tang of his grandmother's cranberry sauce reminded him of his youth. That tart, tangy cranberry sauce. That's the stuff. Sound. The concert was so loud that her ears rang for days afterward. Okay, I can relate. Okay, I have tinnitus. Okay, sight. The sunset was the most gorgeous they'd ever seen. The clouds were edged with pink and gold. Those beautiful colors in there, making the picture even sharper in our mind. Smell. After eating the curry, his breath reeked of garlic. Again, really incorporating not only that taste, okay, we get the idea of the curry in there, but that reeking, that stench of the garlic. Okay, remember that our senses of smell and taste, they're connected. And then touch. The tree bark was rough against her skin. Thinking texturally, thinking about terms of temperature, thinking about what things feel like. Now, an important distinction for us to make, and one that's really going to level up our ability to discuss and analyze these things, is recognizing that there are two types of imagery: literal imagery and figurative imagery. So, literal imagery is when a writer directly and literally describes things to the reader without using figurative language. So, for example, the sun was bright yellow in the sky and the desert was almost unbearably hot. Nothing figurative there, nothing being compared. The sun is yellow, the desert is hot. Now, the next one, figurative imagery, is important for us to slow down for a second and think about. It seems to me that often we don't necessarily connect figurative language with imagery, but the fact is the two are intrinsically linked in many cases, just as imagery is linked to connotation and diction. So figurative imagery is when a writer uses non-literal, metaphorical language to describe something relating to our senses. Okay, using a simile, a metaphor, a personification, a synecdoche, a metonymy, whatever, as long as it appeals to our senses. So taking that first statement and then just making it figurative, the sun was a furious daffodil in the sky that transformed the desert. Ooh, I misspelled desert. My B. That's dessert. I'm a fool. Let's take it again. The sun was a furious daffodil in the sky that transformed the desert into the belly of an evil furnace. Okay? Doing that same thing, but offering more connotation, offering kind of a more intense figurative interpretation of those sensory details. This is really important. I think this is something that we've been struggling with for a while now, and you guys have got to really work to get better at, is talking about, okay, what effects can this have? So what effects can sensory detail and imagery have on our writing? Well, it highlights and emphasizes important information. In any given room, there are roughly 9 trillion different details, but a writer focuses on only a few. Why do they focus on those few? Because they're trying to communicate ideas. It helps to develop tone and mood. Again, imagery and sensory detail has a very strong connection to diction and connotation. Those specific details and the words that are used to describe those details help us understand how the writer feels about what they're talking about and helps us experience emotions and mood. Okay? It develops symbolism. Now, symbol generally works imagistically. So when a writer is focusing on different components of an object or different components of a scene, oftentimes they're going to embed conceptual information or conceptual associations in there. And that's how symbolism is created, by taking an image and filling it full of concepts. And that goes to our next one, connecting to concepts. All right? We often associate images with specific ideas. Like, for example, like a hearse is obviously going to be connected to the image of death. So if we see a hearse driving by randomly in a scene, okay, the writer wants me to think about death. Can also create a meaningful comparison or contrast. So when we're comparing two things or contrasting two things, those are only useful in the sense that it allows us to have deeper ideas within that. So what questions should you be asking yourself when you're interrogating imagery or sensory detail? Well, you should ask yourself, what does the imagery reveal about this situation? What am I being shown? And then I want to ask yourself, okay, what details are being focused on? Why those specific details? Why not something else? Next, what is the connotation of those sensory details? Okay, why did the writer choose these words to describe it instead of these other words with a similar denotation? How do they affect the tone and mood? Okay, our feelings that we're experiencing while we're reading. And then finally, and most importantly, and this one's going to take some practice, you're going to have to really force yourself to do this. Does this detail have a deeper meaning? Is it connected with a concept or an idea? These are the things that you really need to ask yourself if you want to get the most out of understanding imagery when you're reading any piece of literature. All right, looking forward. On Friday, we are going to have a check-in where I am going to ask you guys to do some analysis. How will that work? You will be given a brief literary passage. You're going to need to identify a technique that's used in there, a technique like diction or sensory language or anything like that. You're going to need to explain an idea within the passage. The technique makes clearer for the audience. So how does the diction or sensory language help us understand something? What is it that it helps us understand? And then finally, you'll need to explain the intended effect the technique which makes the ideas clearer. So basically, what does the technique do that helps us understand what the hell's going on in this passage? Now, for all of you good children who have actually listened this far, I'm going to let you in on a little secret here, a little Easter egg. I'm going to post an exemplar of what one of these analysis paragraphs should look like tomorrow in my blog. So be on the lookout. All right, have a great day, children. Bye-bye.